A household earning $50,000 a year and saving 30% of it ends up wealthier, measurably, mathematically, than a household earning $200,000 a year that saves 5%. The high earner has 4 times the income. The low earner has 3 times the wealth at retirement. The math is not subtle and it is not new. 40% of American workers earning over $500,000 per year report living paycheck to paycheck. That is the Goldman Sachs Future of Work Survey, 2025, $500,000 in income, 0 in savings. The paradox the math allows: the more you earn, the poorer you can become. The American conversation about money is almost entirely about income: how to negotiate a raise, how to switch jobs, how to ask for a promotion, how to find a higher paying career. These are the topics that fill the personal finance shelf at every bookstore and the algorithm of every career advice channel. The implicit assumption is that income is the bottleneck. Once you earn more, the rest takes care of itself. The data says otherwise. In 2025, Goldman Sachs published its Future of Work survey of American workers across all income brackets. Among workers earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year, 41% reported living paycheck to paycheck. Among workers earning over $500,000, over $500,000 a year, 40% reported the same thing. $500,000 a year is roughly 10 times the U.S. median household income. The Goldman number says, at 10 times the median, 2 in 5 workers still spend everything they earn. There is a phenomenon at work that is invisible if you only think about money in income terms. The phenomenon has a name. It was identified by 2 psychologists in 1971. The name is the hedonic treadmill. The math behind it is the same compound math we built 3 episodes ago, applied to the spending side, not the income side. If income is the gas pedal of personal finance, spending is the engine. And most households have been quietly increasing the engine's fuel consumption every time they push down harder. Before the formula, today's episode is sponsored The Sponsor, a private community for people who measure wealth as accumulated, not as displayed. Inside, we work through deep dive material on behavioral economics, applied mathematics, and the time value of money decisions that compound over decades. If this episode resonates, the behavioral economics and time value tracks inside go a layer deeper. Find the link below, right under the video. Now, back to the treadmill. Pull up the wealth equation. Wealth at year n equals the sum, across every year from 1 to n, of income minus spending for that year, compounded by the investment return over the remaining horizon. 3 variables. Most personal finance focuses on one of them, income. But income enters the equation as a subtraction, with spending sitting right next to it. The difference between income and spending, the savings, is what compounds. Income alone doesn't compound. Savings compound. Run 2 scenarios: same age, 35, same retirement target, 65, same investment return, 7% real. Different combinations of income and savings rate. Household A earns $200,000 a year, spends $190,000, saves $10,000, savings rate 5%. Household B earns $80,000 a year, spends $50,000, saves $30,000, savings rate 37.5%. After 30 years compounded at 7% real, household A reaches $944,000. Household B reaches $2,833,000. The $80,000 earner finishes 3 times wealthier than the $200,000 earner. The income difference is $120,000 per year. The wealth difference is nearly $2 million in B's favor. Same horizon, same compound, same market. The mechanism is the savings rate, not the income. Now apply the 4% rule multiplier from episode 7. Household A reaches a portfolio that supports, at 4% withdrawals, roughly $37,700 a year in retirement. They were spending $190,000. They cannot afford to retire. Household B reaches a portfolio that supports about $113,000 a year. They were spending $50,000. They were retired at 50. The math has spoken. The variable was never the income. There is one more layer worth stating explicitly. The wealth equation is path independent at the income level and path-dependent at the savings level. Two households can earn the same gross dollar amount over 30 years and end up with wildly different net worths, depending entirely on what fraction was retained. The income produces the opportunity, the savings rate produces the result. The investment return is the multiplier that turns the result into a portfolio. 3 steps, most people only run the first one. So why does almost every household, when income goes up, let spending go up with it? The answer is psychological, and it has a name. In 1971, two American psychologists, Philip Brickman and Donald T. Campbell, published a chapter in a symposium volume called Adaptation Level Theory. They proposed a phenomenon they called the hedonic treadmill. The thesis: humans return to a baseline level of happiness after both positive and negative events. The bigger the event, the longer the boost or the dip. But the brain recalibrates. Within months, the bigger house feels normal. The nicer car feels normal. The business class flights feel normal. Whatever made the household feel rich last year is the baseline this year. To maintain the feeling of rising prosperity, the household reaches for the next upgrade. A bigger house, a nicer neighborhood, private school for the kids, restaurant meals 5 nights a week instead of 2. Each upgrade produces a temporary boost in life satisfaction that, within 6 to 12 months, fades back to baseline. Brickman extended the work in 1978 with one of the most cited studies in the literature. He compared 22 lottery winners with 29 recent paraplegic accident victims. Both groups, within months, returned to approximately their pre-event happiness baselines. The lottery winners did not sustain elevated life satisfaction. The paraplegics did not sustain depressed life satisfaction. The brain recalibrated. Daniel Kahneman, citing the same mechanism, called it the simplest result in adaptation psychology: money buys life evaluation, not emotional well-being. The brain that took income from 50,000 to 200,000 experienced approximately the same emotional payoff curve. The household that grew its consumption from 50,000 to 200,000 simply changed its baseline. The retirement timeline did not move. This is the cruel half of the math. The brain that produces the upgrade urge is the same brain that produces hunger and thirst. It is not a moral failing. It is hardware. The advertising industry, the luxury goods sector, the entire premium tier economy is built on the predictable reliability of that hardware. Households that build wealth are not households that feel less hunger for upgrades. They are households that recognize the hunger for what it is and let it pass without acting on it. 4 illustrative cases from the data. Case 1, the millionaire next door. In 1996, marketing researchers Thomas Stanley and William Danko published The Millionaire Next Door, a survey of thousands of U.S. millionaire households. Their finding was structurally surprising. The typical U.S. millionaire is not a high-earning professional. The typical U.S. millionaire is a mid-income business owner or salaried employee earning between $75,000 and $150,000 a year, who saved 15 to 25% of that income consistently for 2 to 4 decades. They drove used cars. They lived in homes worth less than 3 times their income. They never appeared on the cover of any magazine. They were not, in the popular imagination, rich. They were, in fact, the median millionaire. Stanley and Danko coined 2 terms. A prodigious accumulator of wealth, or PAW, has at least twice the net worth predicted by their formula. Age times pre-tax income divided by 10. An underaccumulator of wealth, or UAW, has less than half that predicted figure. Their finding: in the US, income is uncorrelated with PAW status. The high-income doctor is statistically more likely to be a UAW than the mid-income school principal. Case 2, the Goldman Sachs Survey, 2025. 41% of $300,000 earners paycheck to paycheck. 40% of 500,000 plus. The mechanism is lifestyle creep, the systematic expansion of consumption to match income. The Goldman analyst quoted in the report described it directly. Luxuries become necessities. The $500,000 earner cannot imagine flying economy, sending the kids to public school, driving a 5-year-old car. None of those choices feel abundant to them. They all feel necessary. Case 3. The Brickman Lottery Study, 1978. 22 recent lottery winners, 29 paraplegic accident victims. Both groups returned to their pre-event happiness baselines within months. The implication for lifestyle creep is direct. The next purchase will not produce sustained satisfaction. Neither will the one after. Neither will the one after that. The product the upgrade market is selling, sustained feeling, does not exist. Only momentary boosts that fade. Case 4. The Mr. Money Mustache Chart 2012 Revisited. From Episode 7. At a 50% savings rate, retirement comes in 17 years. At 75%, in 7. The chart is the most viewed personal finance graphic on the internet because it answers the lifestyle creep question the other way round. Instead of, what can I afford to spend, it asks, how much earlier do I retire if I don't? The answer is shocking only to households who never ran the math. 4 cases, 4 data sources. 1 conclusion, the variable that determines whether you build wealth is not how much you earn. It is what fraction of it you refuse to spend. The structural insight from this episode is the simplest sentence in the whole channel. Wealth is not income. Wealth is income minus spending, compounded by time. 3 variables. Most cultural attention goes to the first. Most personal control sits in the second. The third is roughly the same for everyone using passive index funds. Episode 7, Vanguard VOO at 7% real. This is what Thomas Stanley meant when he wrote in The Millionaire Next Door that wealth is what you accumulate, not what you spend. The line sounds like a slogan. It is a structural mathematical statement. The household that displays wealth, the bigger house, the nicer car, the more elaborate vacation, is spending the resource. The household that accumulates wealth is retaining the resource. The 2 paths look almost identical from year to year. They diverge dramatically across decades. The cruel irony is that the spender feels richer throughout the timeline. They live in the bigger house, they drive the nicer car. The accumulator looks, on paper, indistinguishable from a middle-income worker. But at age 65, the accumulator has options the spender does not. The accumulator can retire. The spender statistically cannot. The math does not care which one feels wealthier along the way. It only cares about which one stopped spending the resource before time ran out. There's one more thing worth saying out loud. This is not an argument for asceticism. It is an argument for the gap. A household earning $200,000 a year is not required to live like a household earning $80,000. They are required only to retain and to invest a high enough fraction of the difference. The fraction is what builds wealth. The income level only determines what fraction is available. A 6-figure earner who chooses to live on $80,000 and save the rest is doing exactly the math this episode prescribes. The point is not the lifestyle level, the point is the gap. So what is the right level of spending? The honest answer is, it depends on what you want. If you want to retire at 65 with the lifestyle you have today, the math gives you a specific savings rate range, 15 to 20%. If you want to retire earlier, the rate goes up steeply. If you want to spend your whole life consuming at your current income level, with no retirement and no margin, the rate is near zero. The math has no opinion. It only delivers the schedule that follows from the rate. What the data does say, and this is the harder part of the episode, is that most people don't run the calculation. They never connect their monthly consumption to their retirement timeline. They never plot the savings rate. The decision happens by default. Each individual upgrade feels small. Each individual upgrade is small. But the cumulative effect, compounded across a working life, is the difference between a millionaire next door and a paycheck-to-paycheck $500,000 earner. The honest question is therefore not, can I afford this purchase? Of course you can afford it. By definition, anything within your income is affordable in the short term. The honest question is, what does this purchase, repeated, do to my retirement timeline? That calculation is the same calculation episode 7 introduced as the 4% rule. Spending equals the input. Compound time equals the multiplier. Wealth equals the output. This is the 7th episode in one mathematical conversation. EP3 built compound interest up. EP4 ran it down through inflation. EP5 looked sideways at variance. EP6 found the zero, lotteries, the limit case of negative EV. EP7 gave us the multiplier, the 4% rule that converts spending into a portfolio target. EP8 inverted the compound curve into a weapon, credit card debt. EP9, this one brings the same math home. Compound, decay, variance, zero, multiplier, weapon, and now, creep. 7 concepts, 1 arithmetic. The single most powerful variable in personal finance is the gap between income and spending, and the gap is, structurally, the variable you control. Next episode, we'll look at the cognitive bias that makes lifestyle creep so seductive, diminishing marginal utility. Why the second $100,000 purchase feels less good than the first, and why understanding that one fact is the closest thing to a defense against the treadmill. Until then, watch the gap, not the income.